Hey, there we are. Good morning, beloved. Thank you for joining us this morning in Sunday Fellowship. It's been a while since I've been with you. We've had some of our wonderful brothers in the message here in the fellowship talk and teach in the last several weeks. I was gone for a couple of weeks and to Ghana on a mission trip, and we had a wonderful time there. Hopefully, we'll be able to give you guys some updates on that as time goes on. But it was really a time of refreshing, a time that the Father gave me to begin to hear from Him on this process that we all have been come to see in the process of sonship. Who we are in Christ as a spiritual sons of God, who we are to the Father versus who we are to others, and even in some cases who we are to ourselves. So he spoke this to me. It was a couple of things. Hopefully, I trust the Father to get them to you in the next couple of weeks. I think our dear sister Brenda is going to be teaching next week. But a couple of things we're going to talk about this week, and then it will kind of be a lead in to the next time I teach. But anyway, today, the Father has given me this word to you today, and it's going to be kind of different in a sense, because there is a lot of verses we need to read. And so Catherine is here to help me do that. And she's going to read quite a number of verses. That's okay, because I'm led to let these verses, as she reads these verses, you're going to see them on the screen. And I wanted to build in your mind a picture. The Father is going to say something to us today about significance of me, the significance of me, and what that really means according to who we are spiritually and who we are in the flesh, who we have appeared to be to ourselves, and why we need significance and of course, relevance. So we're going to touch on those things today. But after she reads all of those verses, we're going to go back, and we're going to look at the significance of me from I would say, the Father's point of view. There's going to be a couple of points of view we're going to look at today. So I'll just read from my notes here to get started. As I've said today, we're going to take a look at what it means to seek the significance of me, a search for personal confirmation of the relevance of the me identity. But first, we're going to look at the definition. Honey, you want to step in then?
The definition of significance: something that is conveyed as a meaning, often obscurely or indirectly. The quality of conveying or implying, the quality of being important, the quality of being important, the quality of having notable worth or influence, the meaning of something, the quality of being statistically significant. You know the saying, the statistical outlier. The desensitization to the statistical the desensitization to the mystery of spiritual birth resulting in spiritual sonship keeps many in religion and the church pulled into the undertow of significance, importance, and relevance of me in the flesh.
Now, that's where we are across the board in most places. It doesn't matter whether or not, and you can leave it there for a minute, Jim. I'm not going to be too long because I wanted to continue reading. It doesn't matter what kind of church whether you go to a Bible-believing church or not, the significance and importance and relevance of me in the flesh is what's dominant in most churches today, most fellowships today. That's the dominance, because if you don't understand spiritual birth, you don't understand spiritual sonship and identity and who you are to the Father, the only left, the default identity and significance is in the flesh. Your importance is in the flesh. Even a believer who advocates knowing who they are in Christ, even some of you today who might advocate being the Son of God, you still can be stuck in this idea and undertow of significance and importance and relevance of me in the flesh. Yeah, Curtis and I had a good conversation on some of this when we had breakfast the other morning. But anyway, continue, Catherine.
James 4:14, whereas ye know not what shall be on the morrow. What is your life? For ye are a vapor that appeareth for a little time, and then vanisheth away. Our view of the significance of me, which most of us have learned, is strictly from an outside or outward identity. This view makes us feel good inwardly and provides the relevance to the me identity. Of course, this process and view is subjective and loaded with fear and confirmation bias. There's another view of the significance of me. It's the objective view of the significance of me, the view of our spiritual father. He not only declares the significance of me, but also the relevance of me to himself as well. No man can give me this significance, and no man can take this significance from me, as Paul said. Galatians 1:12, for I neither received it of man, neither was I taught it, but by the revelation of Jesus Christ. What does that look like from the Father? Psalms 2:7, I will declare the decree. The Lord hath said unto me, Thou art my son. This day have I begotten thee.
That's a powerful word.
Isaiah 42:1, Behold my servant, whom I uphold, mine elect, in whom my soul delighteth. I have put my spirit upon him. He shall bring forth justice to the nations.
Now pause for a minute there, Jim. I want you to take a quick look at that, the pronouns, my servant, in whom I uphold, mine elect, my soul delighteth. I have put my spirit. I think the Father is saying something about significance. The significance really comes from him. But let's keep going. Let's look at Matthew 3.
Matthew 3:17, And lo, a voice from heaven saying, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Matthew 17:5, While he yet spake, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and behold, a voice out of the cloud, which said, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear ye him. Mark 1:11, And there came a voice from heaven saying, You art my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased.
Now, I want to pause on that verse for a minute, Jim. I want you to keep this verse in mind, because this verse is going to come in later on in the message. This verse is more powerful than you can imagine for what we're going to take a look, what we're going to see. I trust the Father to reveal to you as we go forth today that this verse carries weight that is unbelievably how do I say this? It carries weight. That's how you say it. It carries weight, unbelievably powerful at a certain time in the significance of me. So remember this verse, Mark 1:11. You are my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Let that soak in for a second. Let that settle in your minds. Not in your minds of the flesh, but from the mind of your spirit, the mind of the Son, who you are to the Father. Because these words can be life-saving to you. These words can be life-saving to you from Father. Keep going.
John 3:16-35, For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. The Father loveth the Son, and hath given all things into his hand.
That's the significance of me.
John 5:22, Furthermore, the Father does not judge anyone, but has assigned all judgment to the Son. Colossians 1:13, Who hath delivered us from the power of darkness, and hath translated us into the kingdom of his dear Son.
That's the Father. Who hath delivered us is the Father from the power of darkness and has translated us into the kingdom of his dear Son. That's the Father. That's the significance of me. Keep going, Catherine. Thank you.
2 Peter 1:17, For he received from God the Father honor and glory, when there came such a voice to him from the excellent glory, This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. All of those verses speak to us, tell us, and declare to us the significance of me to the Father, his view of me in both significance and relevance. Beloved, that is the significance of me that matters. Truthfully, there's really the significance of there's really the significance of me many are seeking. Even some of you watching and listening to this message right now. Let's look at another verse which will lead us deeper into the Father's significance of me. John 12:28. Father, glorify your name. Then a voice came from heaven. I have glorified it, and I will glorify it again. Look at that. A voice came from heaven. Again. Jesus said, Father, and the Father answered.
Pause it, Jim. No, you keep going, Catherine.
I have, but then he says, I will again. What does Father mean? Is there another view of the significance of me Father is referring to?
Let's talk about that for a second. I've read this verse for many years in John 12:28, and I've not seen something before because it wasn't revealed to me. You can't give what you do not have. Let me say it again. You can't give what you do not have. You can't live outside of who you are to yourself and the self that's been revealed to you. But Jesus says something, Father, glorify thy name. Now remember in John 17, Jesus said, Father, I have kept them in thy name. That was in the Garden of Gethsemane. This is just before the upper room discourse. This is before the Lord's Supper. This is before all this, just before this took place is where this passage is going. But he said, a voice came from heaven. Jesus said, glorify your name. Father, glorify your name. And the Father answered, and he said, I have glorified it, which means I've already done that. And I will glorify it again. Now I've read that verse thousands of times, but I've not seen something that God was saying in this to his son. I did not see, he said, I've done this. This is just before the cross. This is just before the cross. I've glorified, I've healed the sick. Jesus said, it's not the works, it's not my works, it's the Father in me, he doeth the work. We all heard that in John 14, which is coming after this. But the Father has said, I've already done that. I've already healed the sick in you. I've already cast out devils with you, through you. I've fed the 5,000 and 3,000 through you. I've done all of these mighty works through you. I've already glorified my name. But guess what? I'm about to do it again. I had not seen that. And I will glorify it. What is it? His name or himself. I'm about to glorify myself again. I got an amen. I got my mijo here, amen in me. He said, I'm about to do it again. I'm about to do it again. So there is a significance of me that the Father has not shown in the Son yet. See, we all get that significance of being seen, that God healing and speaking through us and the Father ministering through us and giving us great revelations, and we can talk to people, and people are at the power of the message that the Father is presenting to others in us and through us and even to ourselves. But there's something coming that the Father said, and I will glorify it again. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it one more time. I've got something coming, son. Did Jesus know what it was? Yes, he did, but he did not know the details. And we're going to take a look this morning at the details of the significance of me that we don't see. Let's keep going, Catherine.
The significance of me again. Matthew 27, 26 through 32, 45 through 46, and 50. Then released the Barabbas unto them. And when he had scourged Jesus, he delivered him to be crucified. Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the common hall and gathered him.
Pause, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I want you guys, if you will, to pay attention to these verses. There's a lot of verses. Let what you're hearing or reading, if you're reading along with Catherine, you're going along with us, let this build in your mind. Let these words build the vision or the idea of what was going on. I know some of you read this, you've heard this story many, many times, but I'm saying to you, do not jump ahead. See, some of you can't help that because you already know stuff. But I'm asking you from the Father, let this build in your mind. Let the sequence of events take hold in you. Don't jump ahead because we don't want to know what you already know. You want to find out what you don't know. And you can't find that out without allowing these words to take a different meaning than they have in the past. Please continue.
Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the common hall and gathered unto him the whole band of soldiers. And they stripped him and put him on a scarlet robe. And when they had plaited a crown of thorns, they put it upon his head, and a reed in his right hand, and they bowed the knee before him and knocked him, saying, Hail, King of the Jews! And they spit on him, and took the reed and smote him on the head. And after that, they had mocked him, and they took the robe off him, and put his own raiment on him, and led him away to crucify him. And as they came out, they found a man of Cyrene, Simon, by name. Him they compelled to bear his cross. Now from the 6th hour there was darkness over all the land unto the 9th hour. And about the 9th hour Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. That is to say, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Jesus, when he had cried again with a loud voice, yielded up the ghost.
Now that was Matthew's version. We're going to continue. He gave up the ghost. That means Jesus died right there on the cross. But let's move on to John 19. Let's let this continue to establish a vision or a pattern of events in your mind.
John 19, 38 through 42. And after this, Joseph of Arimathea, being a disciple of Jesus, but secretly for fear from the Jews, besought Pilate that he might take away the body of Jesus. And Pilate gave him leave. He came therefore and took the body of Jesus. And there came also Nicodemus, which at the first came to Jesus by night, and brought a mixture of myrrh and aloes, about 100 pound weight. And then took they the body of Jesus and wound it in linen clothes with the spices, as the manner of the Jews is to bury. Now in the place where he was crucified there was a garden, and in the garden a new sepulchre, wherein was never a man yet laid. There laid they Jesus, therefore, because the Jews' preparation day for the sepulchre was nigh at hand. Luke 23, 54 through 56. And that day was the preparation, and the Sabbath drew on. And the women also, which came with him from Galilee, followed after, and beheld the sepulchre. And now his body was laid. And they returned, and prepared spices and ointments, and rested the Sabbath day according to the commandment. Note John 11, 9 through 10. Jesus answered, And there not 12 hours in the day? If any man walk in the day, he stumbleth not, because he seeth the light of the world. But if a man walk in the night, he stumbles, because there is no light in him.
Now, let me pause for just 1 second. Leave it up there. Thank you, Jim. I'll put this in there, this note in there, so you would understand the time element. Only because the Jews had a 12-hour time element as the Romans. They followed that 12 hours from sunrise to sunset. And so everything hinges on us understanding the 6th hour, the 9th hour, the day coming to an end at sunset, and the haste. Because remember, it was dark, and then when it says Jesus hung his head and gave up with a loud voice, which we'll come to when I begin to explain this in a little more detail. So that was the 9th hour is 3 o'clock, as we know. The 6th hour is noon. The third hour is 9 in the morning. 6 hour is noon. 3 o'clock, as we know it, is the ninth hour, and the 12th hour is sunset or 6. Now that changes during the year. I won't go into that, but they still follow this time clock. That's important. The relevance of the ninth hour is important to see what was going on afterwards, because we're talking about the significance of me. So let's go on. Let's look at a little bit more here, and then I'll start.
I want to take a closer look at the Father's word again. One common form of corporal punishment recorded in both the Old and New Testaments is the receiving of stripes, also called scourging, Leviticus 19:20. And whosoever lieth carnally with a woman, that is a bondmaid betrothed to a husband, and not at all redeemed, nor freedom given her, she shall be scourged. They shall not be put to death, because she was not free. The practice is based on Deuteronomy 25, 1 through 3, where up to 40 stripes can be administered. Such correction was labeled 40 stripes save one, 2 Corinthians 11:24, as Jews limited themselves to carrying out, at most, only 39 stripes. Deuteronomy 25, 1 through 3. If there be a controversy between men, and they come into judgment, that the judges may judge them, then they shall justify the righteous and condemn the wicked. And it shall be, if the wicked man be worthy to be beaten, that the judge shall cause him to lie down and to be beaten before his face, according to his fault, by a certain number. 40 stripes he may give him, and not exceed, lest if he should exceed and beat him above these with many stripes, then thy brother should seem vile unto thee.
Now, before Catherine reads this, and we get into some of these details, I want to go back up, because I'm going to show you something, and we'll come right back to this plate. Well, never mind. We want to go back to Matthew 27, then Jim, you don't have to follow, but I want to go back to Matthew 27, where Catherine was reading this from Matthew 27:26, and I'll read it, and then we'll come back down here to this particular part because it's important. Matthew 27, verse 26 says, "Then released he Barabbas," talking about Pilate. Pilate released Barabbas unto them, the high priest and the crowd that was there screaming for his release, which we will talk about in a couple of weeks. So I'm going to talk about the mystery of sonship. Give us Barabbas. It says, when he had scourged Jesus, he delivered him to be crucified. Now there's something in this little word here that I want to go into, because the significance of me that we don't see or we haven't seen is about to be shared before. Now you might already know this. You might already know everything I'm about to say. You might have heard this the way it's been prayed. I have not. The things the Father gave me in this idea of the significance of me is not the same as I've known it to be. I've known that significance of me that many of you know. That, you know, how the one out in the flesh, the one I remember years ago when I first got into the in Christ message. I had my first revelation of Christ, and every time I opened my mouth, somebody would tell me, "Brother Warren, you listening to Warren Listman." And I got irritated with that. I got angry with that. Because I wasn't talking to Warren. The Father was revealing these things to me. And these people was trying to rob my significance and relevance of that revelation by assigning it to Warren Listman. Yes, he was my father in the Lord. Yes, he shared a lot of things with me. There's things that I share with Warren that throws down Warren and say, "Dave, I can't answer that. You got to go that. You got to put it on the shelf. You got to wait till the Father answer that." He said, "Son, that's deep thinking. That hadn't been revealed to me yet." So I wasn't getting it from Warren. But they said, "That's Warren Listman. That's Warren Listman." And I had to continue to defend that. I had to continue to say, no, the Father gave that to me. He speaks to one, he speaks. My significance was being challenged. My relevance of what I was talking about was being denied and given to somebody else. That's flesh. Didn't know it at the time. But I was reading 1 Timothy one day, and the Father, Paul said, he told Timothy, and be not ashamed of me and the gospel. And at that time, I saw Warren. And I cried because I saw what I was doing. We don't see that. See, when we look at the significance of me, it's always about me in the flesh. It's about who I am to me and what others are going to perceive as me. So I sit down, and the Father had me write that brother a letter explaining it and apologize to him for denying the message I have came through him. Came through him. But I needed significance. I needed relevance in that church. I need to know I had a revelation of Christ, and it didn't come from Warren. There's a verse for that. And we'll get to that verse later on. So I gave that letter to Warren. He read it. He looked at me and said, son, he said, Dave, just let that go, son. I understand. He's very kind, very loving toward me in my immaturity of my flesh and my spiritual identity. But when Pilate released Barabbas, he sent Jesus to be scourged. Now, I gave you Deuteronomy 25 only to let you see that the Jews God had given Moses something for the Jews to punish those who were in error. 40 stripes. Paul said that in 2 Corinthians, I think. He talked about his 39 stripes minus 1, which is 40 minus 1, 39 stripes. But how many stripes did Jesus take? How many of you been told how many stripes that Jesus took? How many lashes did Jesus get? Our older brother, how many stripes did he take? I can tell you it wasn't 40. I can tell you it wasn't 39. I will even go as far to say to you it wasn't even 25. Matter of fact, I'm going to step out on a limb and say I don't even see it was 20. It could have been 20. Could have been. Maybe 25. But I'm going to tell you why in a minute, because that's the significance of me. A significance of me that most of us don't see. So I'll ask Catherine to go back down to where she was and continue reading.
There is actually no biblical reference regarding the number of lashes Jesus received. We know only that he was scourged by the Romans prior to crucifixion. Many people assume that he would have received 39 lashes because that's the number specified by Paul with reference to his own experience at the hand of the Jews around the same time period. See 2 Corinthians 11:24. The Roman scourge instrument. Keep in mind, though, that Jesus was whipped by the Roman soldiers, not the Jews, so they likely should not have felt compelled to follow the old laws. The Romans would, according to custom, scourge a condemned criminal before he was put to death. The Roman scourge, also called the flagrum or flagellum, was a short whip made of 2 or 3 leather oxhide thongs.
Pause. Jim's got that on the screen for you guys to see. I ordered one, a replica of one, not a real one. But it didn't get here in time for the message today. But as you can see, and she's going to read the details in this, the handle is short. And there's a reason for the handle being short and those thongs being the length they are. That meant the Roman soldier was in close proximity of the one being beat. He was only an arm length away. He wasn't way back like some movies portrayed it to be. He was right on top of him, right there, an arm length away. That's going to mean something in a few minutes when we get to explain this in more details. Thank you, Jim. Keep reading, Catherine.
Thongs or ropes connected to a handle. If you look up one of these monsters, you'll see that it consists of leather thongs knotted with a number of small pieces of bones, metal, usually zinc or iron, attached at various intervals. Scourging would quickly remove the skin. Again, the point of these was to quickly and efficiently tear the flesh off the body in the most painful manner possible.
Pause. I want you to see this for a second. Scourging would quickly remove the skin. Again, the point of these were to quickly and efficiently tear flesh from the body in the most painful manner possible. And the Romans would continue until the victim was near death. Now listen to me. You've heard the cliche, they beat him within an inch of his life. This is where this comes from. Within an inch, to bring them to a part that they were almost dead. Remember, because they were condemned to death of the cross. He was condemned to the death of the cross. So he could not kill him. He didn't want to kill him. But he brought him to a point almost to death. Let's keep reading, please.
Sometimes the Roman scourge contained a hook at the end and was given the terrifying name scorpion. The criminal was made to stoop, which would make deeper lashes from the shoulder to the waist. Nevertheless, scourging among the Romans was more severe, and there was no legal limit to the number of blows as with the Jews. Deep lacerations, torn flesh, exposed muscles, and excessive bleeding would leave the criminal half dead. Death was often the result of this cruel form of punishment, though it was necessary to keep the criminal alive to be brought to the public subjugation on the cross. The centurion in charge would order the lictors to halt the flogging when the criminal was near death. Whether or not Jesus could have withstood 39 lashes with this particular torture instrument and still be capable of enduring further taunting and beating before carrying his own cross to the crucifixion is questionable. No matter how many lashes he received, it would have been quite horribly painful. Isaiah 52:14, as many were astonished at him. His appearance was so marred beyond human beyond human semblance, and his form beyond that of the Son of Men.
Let me talk to you for a minute. Let me talk to you about the significance of me. Because I want to take us back to this part. This is before the cross. This part is where, that's good, Jim. Thank you. This part is where I want to emphasize the significance of me. I wanted Catherine to read this part to you. I wanted you to see the process that happened before he gets to the cross and why certain things happen. The Romans did not have to follow, as you read, as Catherine read. The Romans did not have to follow the law. You saw the picture. Catherine gave you the description of the flagellum or the scourging instrument of the Romans. Jesus, the Father said to him, I will glorify it again. We're about to enter that word that the Father shared to his Son. They took Jesus and Jim, could you move the notes off the screen for me, please? Thank you. They took the Son, and the Father said, I am going to glorify it again. I don't have that replica, but I'm going to give you an example of what I mean by the significance of me. I saw this a week ago. I've talked about it. I shared it with Catherine. I've shared it with Pete. And I saw some things that just crushed me inside. I saw my brother, the father's firstborn. Before those Roman soldiers, that man was only an arm's length away from his back. And I know this is not like the flagellum. I know this is not like the scorpion. But I can tell you, he didn't take 39 lashes of that. He didn't take 30 lashes of that. I saw those licks. Jesus heard. My brother heard the sound of that man's breath as he drew back. And he heard him exhale. That scorpion tore into his back, pulled the flesh from his spinal cord. The first few wasn't that bad. It hurt. But he went, After a while, all Jesus could hear was that breath and the feeling of his body being torn from that flog. After about the 10th or the 15th lick, he was ready to give up. He couldn't take it. He called out to the Father, 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 help me. Father, help me. He didn't hear anything. He couldn't hear anything but that man's breathing. Around the 20th lash, Jesus was ready to die. That's the significance of me. He stopped calling out to the Father. He was ready to die. Right there at that moment, he was at that place of giving up. But then he heard, you are my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. You are my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. He didn't die. The strength from the voice of the Father overshadowed that Roman soldier. Again. And it struck 20-something. The centurion said, stop. The soldier put down the scorpion. Jesus was collapsed. Blood was everywhere. His back was just nothing. Isaiah 52:14 that Catherine read a few minutes ago, he was unrecognizable. His appearance was marred beyond human resemblance, and his form beyond that of the sons of men. That's the significance of me. That's the significance of me. They picked him up because he couldn't stand. They took his clothes off, naked. They put a robe, as Catherine read, a robe on him. They took a crown of thorns, pushed it in his skull. I've heard many preach on the crown of thorns, but I'm telling you, the scourging almost killed him. The crown of thorns did not compare to what he had just endured. The crown of thorns was not anything to compare. It hurt, it did, but not like the lashing, not like the scourging. They took a reed as she read and beat him over the head and bowed down. That wasn't what caused the pain. It said they mocked him and called him King of the Jews. He couldn't move. He was almost dead. That's what the Father says. I will glorify it again. That man you see there within an inch of his life is the significance of me. They took him and put his clothes on him. He could not stand. As they opened the doors, they found somebody to carry his cross because he could not carry it. They have movies and things showing him he carried the cross and he fell. That verse said they opened the doors to come out of the hall and they found somebody to take it because he could not do it. He was almost dead. They took him. Simon and Cyrene carried that cross all the way to Golgotha. That's the significance of me. They nailed him to the cross. The nails hurt. But as his raw back rubbed against the cross, it hurt. They nailed him, stood him up. As you know, I didn't put that in there. He had a conversation with the thieves on the cross. They were thieves. This was the 6th hour. It was dark from noon to 3. It says, as Catherine read to you, he cried out to the Father. It says in the 9th hour, he gave up the ghost. Joseph of Arimathea, as she read to you, went to get his body. Why? Because the Passover was at hand. The Sabbath was at hand. He was the lamb. The Sabbath was at hand. So they had to get him down. Joseph of Arimathea, who privately was a disciple, came, got the body. Nicodemus, both of them were on the Sanhedrin. Nicodemus met him. They got to a tomb. They used copiers. They laid him down on the ground. Now the Jews, before they buried you, they had to clean his body. Please hear me. This is the significance of me. His body was covered with blood. They used copious amounts of water to clean him, all from his face as quickly as they could because sundown was coming, sunset was coming, and they cleaned him. And then, beloved, they rolled him over. They rolled him over and saw. You could see his spine, see his scapula. You could see the significance of me. You could see the significance of me. When the Father said to me, your elder brother gave his life, I had no idea. I had no idea of the significance of me. I had no idea. All of my life, I've been taught about the cross, but not about this. The Father said, I will glorify it again. I didn't understand. I didn't understand the value of my sonship. I didn't understand who I was, how I got to be the son. I didn't understand. I didn't understand. My worst enemy. That's the significance of me from the Father. They cleaned him up. They cleaned him up, wrapped him up, put him in the tomb. Roll a stone over the tomb. Left. Jim, let's go back to the notes, please. Please read that, Catherine. James and John's mother asked, could her son sit on his right and on his left when he comes into his kingdom? And Jesus said these words, you know not what you ask. Can you drink of the cup that I drink of and be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with? I tell you, he is talking about this beating. And they said unto him, we can. And Jesus said yes to them. You shall indeed drink of the cup of death that I drink, and with the baptism that I am baptized with shall ye be baptized. This verse, I did not understand. He was saying, when one died, all die. When I get beat, you get beat. They didn't have to go through that. He did. Jeremiah 49:12 says, and this is what the Lord said. If the innocent must suffer, how much more must you? You will not go unpunished. You must drink this cup of judgment. Who was Isaiah talking to? He was speaking in that which was to come in the firstborn of many brethren. But all this was done, Jesus is saying, but all this was done that the scriptures of the prophets might be fulfilled. Then all the disciples forsook him and fled. Philippians 3:10 said, and to know him, the power of his resurrection, and the fellowship of his suffering, being conformed unto his death. That's the significance of me. Ye cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of devils or demons. You cannot partake of the table of the Lord and the table of demons. I would transliterate that to say the identity of your flesh versus the identity of the spirit. The closing verse I want to give you. Paul said this, and we're going to talk about this in the walk on the pier on the other side. Paul said this, 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 12. For we would not dare to classify or compare ourselves with some of those who recommend themselves. But when they measure themselves by themselves and compare themselves with themselves, they are without understanding. Beloved, I want to thank you for being with us this morning. I trust that some of these things the Father set before you today, you'll see concerning the significance of me. Which me are you referring to? Are you still trying to have relevance in what you do versus who you are spiritually? if you are, if all you've known is the things that are outwardly that you've done, that you look at it, God used me. I hear preachers say that God used him mightily. The Father says, yes, I've glorified it, and I will glorify it again. There's something coming for you. There's something coming for you until you're able to see the significance of me from the cross. Beloved, thank you. God bless you. Trust Sister Brenda is going to be with you next week, and I haven't got what she's going to talk about, but I'll send out the email this week. Love you guys. I'll talk to you later.